What up? We've gotten a lot of requests lately for an XP maxing guide or how to quickly hit level 100. Those are basically the same thing. And sometimes we do requests. This was actually a really good request for us to do, too, because we've been bringing in over 500 million XP per hour in the low 90s, 90 to 92, just by running maps. We're not doing anything annoying or cringe here either. This is just good old-fashioned fast mapping. And it's been really helpful for quickly leveling up characters to the mid-90s like the Plant Druid. That basically took no time at all with this setup. So let's talk about how to get as much XP per hour as possible in the end game. Before we jump into it, help us out with that YouTube busy work, of course. Like, subscribe, and hype the video if you're on mobile. They keep adding new things to do, right? These all tell YouTube to show our content to more people, which helps us keep doing this. Alright, so first off, basics of XP. This is not a campaign guide. With that being said, here are 3 keys to getting through PoE 2's campaign quickly. 1. Upgrade your move speed boots regularly. 2. Move through zones as quickly as you can. You really should only stop to kill bosses and big packs of enemies. And 3. The town is lava. These might all seem ridiculously simple, and they are, but that doesn't make them false. If you do these 3 things, you will be faster in the campaign. That's kind of it. That last tip is still true once you're done with the campaign as well. The hideout is also lava. Let's talk about one thing that you absolutely should not do while trying to level up. Die. Dying costs you 10% of your current level's worth of XP. So when you're at lower level in maps, your character's not as strong, you're level 75 or 80 or whatever, losing 10% of your XP bar isn't too bad. But once you're in the mid-90s or if you're trying to go for 100, death is a huge setback. So just don't die. This is at odds with everything else we want to do to level up fast, of course, because you want to kill as many monsters as possible, as fast as possible, and the more dangerous the monsters, the more XP per hour, so there is a bit of a balance. But really don't die. If you have to make a choice, it's really a lot more important to not die than it is to get a little bit more juice. One of the other basic aspects of gaining XP in Path of Exile is that you gain less XP from monsters that are lower level than you, and that means the more you level up, not only do you need more XP per level, but you also get less XP from farming the same monsters. So anything you can do to make the monster level higher, such as irradiated tablets or using tier 16 maps, does help with getting more XP. Now let's talk about Omens. There are 2 Omens that can really help you out a lot when you're trying to level up. The first is Omen of Amelioration, and what it does is it makes it so that if you die while the Omen is active in your inventory, you only lose 2.5% of a level instead of a full 10%. Now you do have to have this active in your inventory, so you have to right-click it or hit whatever keybind if you're playing on console. The same is true for the other Omen, Omen of Resurgence. What this does is if you fall below 35% life, then you will immediately recover all of your life mana and energy shield. The issue with Omens is that you can only get 1 to trigger in each area, so that means that these are kind of exclusive with each other. If an Omen of Resurgence procs, you're not going to be able to get an Omen of Amelioration to proc. I haven't double-checked this recently, but this has always been the case before, so it probably hasn't changed. And so then there's also the issue of cost. Omens of Amelioration are usually pretty expensive. They're quite rare and useful for a very obvious purpose. Omens of Resurgence are a little bit less reliable, but they are pretty cheap and they can save you from dying, so they're kind of nice to have on hand for bossing. The only downside to Omens of Resurgence really is that they do require you to hit low life, so if you're playing a Chaos Inoculation build, that's never going to happen. It will not work with Energy Shield, only life, so you do have to be playing a life-based build for them to work. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the setup that we are running here, and what we're doing is, as always, random 6 mod maps, not doing anything super special. You can corrupt them up to tier 16 if you want, or down to tier 14 as I've done here, and as I do almost every single time. We don't really care if we get 8 mod maps, that's really not anything that's super valuable. The reason that we're doing 6 mod maps really is just simply to get as many rare monsters and as much pack size as we can, and then also for a little bit of interaction with the temple that we'll talk about in a minute once we get to the temple section. The other main reason that we're running 6 mod maps is, of course, so we could run 3 tablets, and that's really what we're going to move on to here. And the tablet setup is incredibly important. So what we are looking for is 2 specific prefix modifiers on all of our tablets. One of them, increased experience gain in map. Kind of useful if you're trying to get more XP, right? And the other is monsters have increased effectiveness. Now, effectiveness is a stat that was sort of added in patch 0.4, and what it does is it increases monster life, experience granted, and quantity of items dropped. It effectively replaced quantity of items dropped as a modifier on all things like tablets and scaling as you increase in map tier, and it turns out, yeah, this is just better than quantity was because it's the same as it was before, but now you also get more XP. So you have 2 different ways to scale up XP off of tablets, and you can run that on 3 different tablets, scale that with tablet effect from the tree, and potentially even double the effect of tablets if you get a lucky proc out of the tree. Then we have the issue of what mechanics you actually want to run with your tablets, right? Like, you want to get XP and effectiveness on your tablet prefixes, that's actually more important than any specific mechanic. But then you also want to run Breach, ideally. Abyss, unfortunately, is a very good mechanic for gaining XP. It's also a good mechanic for getting killed, so you do want to be a little careful with Abyss. But if you're really trying to min-max your XP, you do want to run both Breach and Abyss, and then you want to run either a Precursor or an Overseer tablet for the explicit purpose of adding +1 level to all of the monsters in the map. A big advantage that the Overseer tablets provide is that you can not only get XP and effectiveness as prefixes, you can also get map bosses grant increased XP as a suffix for an absolutely enormous amount of XP coming off of map bosses. This is something you can also combine with the bossing tree, and you can get basically like a full bar of XP, not a full level, although maybe a low enough level, but like a full 5% of your character level just from killing a map boss, which is pretty insane. So that's tablets. The suffixes don't really matter. We're not really trying to go for currency-related stuff here. I mean, you can if you want, but that's really not what we're going for. Anything that'll give you more monsters out of the Abyss, if you're doing Abyss, is going to be helpful for obvious reasons. Otherwise, it's really not important, like, what you get out of your tablet suffixes. And now let's talk about the tree. So we have 2 tree recommendations that we're going to show off here. The first one is just kind of the standard pack size enjoyer setup that we've talked about in a bunch of other setups. You're just maximizing pack size, magic pack size, rare pack size, the number of those 2 types of packs. You're also getting some Waystone effect out of Unstable Energies and Grueling Journey, getting all the tablet effect you can, adding some packs in with these 2 little points to give increased monster packs. Nothing super groundbreaking here. This is a nice standard safe setup if you want to max your XP, but then also, get some currency farming going too. Like, you still want to get some currency, good approach. If you just care about XP maxing and you say, I don't care if a single divine drops, doesn't matter to me, this is a setup that we played around with and found to be really good when it procs, and, still very good even when it doesn't, and that is going for shrines. We're going all in on shrines. We're taking shrine nodes galore, and then we're taking prayer for wisdom, for the increased chance of getting enlightening shrines and increased effective enlightening shrines. Because what do enlightening shrines do? They give you increased XP. What's better than increased XP? How about doubling it? So this is a setup. We're basically taking almost the whole bottom left half of the tree. We're also taking strong boxes and going with Researcher's Plunder, even though it's not selected in here. There's a little bug with the selector. But yeah, this one's just really good. It gives you an increased chance of getting Researcher strong boxes. They're fairly rare, but they do drop exclusively currency, so it's pretty awesome when they proc. We're also taking Likely Ambush for more strong boxes. Hidden Horrors and Faith and Luck are both really useful, and here is why. Strong boxes seem kind of like a lame mechanic or whatever in PoE 2, and you're not wrong if you feel that way. However, they actually spawn a ton of mobs. They'll spawn like 7, 10, 12, with some good rolls, like 14 packs of mobs. And a lot of those can be rare, a lot of them can be magic, but then you have the chance to maybe do that a second time or a third time if Faith and Luck procs a few times. And you could be looking at like 30, 40, 50 packs of mobs coming out of a single strongbox. That's actually really good for finding more XP. Just killing tons of monsters is literally the best way to get XP, and this is one of the better ways to kill tons of monsters. It does mean that you're not going to be clearing through maps as quickly. It's not the end of the world, but it is maybe something to think about when we start talking about the temple, because maybe just speeding through maps and going for more temple completion can be better. It really depends on how confident you are in your ability to set up temples. And then obviously at the upper side of the tree here, we're still taking all the tablet effect stuff because, of course we are, tablets are really, 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 really good. Then as for the breach tree, you can go with Frantic Invasion and Rising Pyre. People like this for the monster density, it is very good. However, Frantic Invasion, 20% increased damage taken for breach monsters, just really increases your chance to die. So Interdimensional Assault and Grasping Hands do a pretty decent job of kind of giving you that same basic effect, but without 20% higher chance of dying thanks to Frantic Invasion. And then, of course, you're taking Crumbling Walls and Sesh Madness. They're insanely good. As for Expedition and Ritual, they're really not that great for XP farming. Deli can actually be quite good, but it is very dangerous, especially when combined with, like, Abyss or Breach, so maybe not worth doing. And then for Abyss, it's the same setup always. You take Stir the Swarm, you swirl around the left-hand side, and then you take From Out of the Pit, and now you get increased effectiveness of all the Abyss monsters. XP on top of XP on top of XP. Then as for the bossing tree, we are taking the Guaranteed Shrine in areas with a powerful map boss, so if you are running an Overseer tablet, that does guarantee an extra shrine. We're also, getting +1 level, so you don't have to run an Irradiated and an Overseer. Just the Overseer will do. And then we're taking Brutal Lessons. 50% increased XP from map bosses is really good if you're trying to level up. Pretty basic. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the temple, and let's talk about a hotfix change that dropped an hour ago, and that was, first off, Holton was destroyed, which is fine. Nobody cares. No one cares at all about that having happened, but more importantly, maps now give 2 energized crystals at a time if you're doing them at tier 15 and on 6 mod maps, which we are. So I did just test this like literally just before recording, and it does work. You are getting 2 crystals now per map, so you're able to assemble a temple in 3 maps instead of in 6, which is a massive buff to the ability to run temples for XP, and then also temple monster effectiveness has now been changed to work like it does in maps, so higher drops, higher monster life, higher experience from monsters in the temples. It's going to work very similar to the way that it does in maps, except that there are a bunch of bonuses that give a ton more effectiveness to monsters in the temple, and this is where the temple becomes this absolutely insane XP mechanic. The temple gave good XP from the very start, but GGG has buffed it a bunch of times during the league, repeatedly increasing the effectiveness bonuses that monsters get from rooms, and adding medallions that apply random mods to the temple that give monsters even more effectiveness. All of this effectiveness translates to a huge increase in XP gains from running the temple. So the easiest way to juice up effectiveness in the temple is to combine guard rooms and commander's chambers. These give a ton of effectiveness to monsters and also give you more rare monsters in the temple, and rare monsters give the most XP. Prosthetic research rooms straight up just give increased XP throughout the entire temple. If you're able to level them up, that goes from 10% at rank 1 to 20% at rank 2, I believe it's 30% at rank 3. So upgrading those prosthetic research rooms is huge on top of everything else, and that's really the easiest way to farm XP in the game once you have a good temple setup, which does take a bit of time, but you just kind of want to make a snake of rooms and combine all of the rooms that are maybe not as rewarding in terms of currency, but actually give you a bunch of effectiveness on monsters. Pretty simple stuff. And the thing that's nice about doing that with the temple is that you can bounce back and forth between doing a high XP mapping strategy and building a temple, and then doing the temple for a while and getting a bunch of XP from that. And then once the temple's all consumed, go back to the high XP mapping strategy and just bounce back and forth. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.